All right, welcome everyone to the Dane Arts Grant Advisory Panel. I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to serve your community in this way. The funds from the Dane Arts Project grants support local artists and arts and culture organizations, and they help make Dane County a thriving arts and culture hub. My name is Augusta Brula. I'm the Dane Arts Cultural Affairs Specialist. Typically, we have one of our commissioners serve as the chair for these meetings. Our scheduled commissioner wasn't able to make it, so I'm just going to step in and keep us on schedule and call out each of the applications that we'll review. So first, I want to start with introductions, and I'll have each of you introduce yourself with your name, your role, and or organizational affiliation. So Megan, you get to go first again, since you're on the top of my screen.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Blake-Horst. I have been in the arts most all of my life, but I currently serve as the street vending program supervisor for the city of Madison. Unaffiliated with this ask being here, but I do work with hundreds of art and craft vendors and food vendors and restaurant operators all across the city. And then in my other lives, I've worked with Dane Arts. I've also run an art gallery on the Near East Side of Madison and other things. So I'm not affiliated with any official arts-based organization, but definitely have been born and raised in the arts. So that's me.
Thanks, Megan. We're happy to have you. Aaron, can you go next?
Sure. Hi, my name is Aaron Thielen. I work at UW at the School of Business, primarily in the graduate program, the Bowl Center for Arts Administration, and the School of Education, the Theater and Dance Department. I also created a nonprofit called Broadway Across Borders, which started through my work with the U.S. State Department in 2018. So that's who I am.
Thanks, Aaron, for doing this during the busiest time of the school year, too. Ooh, Ben, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Orozco. I am a multidisciplinary artist and graphic designer. I work as a web manager and graphic designer for a nonprofit called Geeks, the Glass Education Exchange, which is a remote organization supporting glass education that was founded here in Madison, but is an online platform affiliated with Helen Lee, who is a professor at UW-Madison. I also am volunteer and participate pretty extensively with Art Lit Lab and also Communication Madison as a art team member and risograph printmaker.
Thanks so much, Ben. And we're excited to have you and Aaron and Christina are all first-time reviewers. So thanks for jumping in. And Christina, you're next on my screen, so I'll have you go ahead.
Great. Hi, I'm Christina Sinutko. I'm a graphic designer as well. I work for SiriusXM in their learning experience design department. I am a recent transplant to Madison. I moved here a little over a year ago, so I'm volunteering as much as I can, getting involved in the art community. This is my first review panel, so I'm excited to contribute where I can. I'm also an artist on the side.
Thanks, Christina. It'll be a great way to hear what's coming up, and you'll have plenty of events you'll want to go to. And Claire, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I apologize for going off video. My internet connection is unstable, apparently. So hi, I'm Claire Canapel. I am a software engineer in my day job, but I also play double bass in a bluegrass band in town. Yeah, love playing music. So that's my arts affiliation.
Thanks, Claire. Happy to have you join us again this cycle. They're adding up. You've been a great participant, as well as Megan returning cycle after cycle. Yeah, so next up, I just want to remind us all of the Dane Arts mission. So the Dane Arts Commission is committed to making our community stronger by supporting citizens, groups, and organizations that preserve our shared heritage and create arts and culture opportunities for residents and visitors. And our mission at Dane Arts is to engage participation, connect people, and inspire expressive living in Dane County. The Dane Arts Project grants support equitable access to arts, culture, and local history activities in Dane County, Wisconsin. They support opportunities for creative expression, engagement, and connection with one another, and they support excellence in the arts. So by now, you've read the online applications assigned to you in web grants. You've taken notes on each application regarding how each proposal aligns with the review criteria. And next, the Dane Arts Commission does determine funding based mainly on your opinions. So it's critical that you're fair, deliberate, and attentive to detail, which I know you are. That's just your personality. And as a reminder, as you know, it's no easy task for some of these groups to submit a grant proposal, and many are written by volunteers who already work full-time jobs. So we do not want to unduly jeopardize those who may be new to grant writing. Yet we still want to uphold our criteria for judging the merit of each project. Often requests are for more dollars than we have to allocate. So your attention to each application is critical to the success of the grant program. And then this cycle, as in past cycles, Dane Arts plans to award a minimum of $500 to all eligible fundable applications. So we thank you for being fair, deliberate, and honoring the work that produces high caliber art and meaningful arts and culture experiences for Dane County residents. And then a little note on the process. We'll have 11 applications to discuss and review today. We have about 10 minutes per application for discussion. I will introduce each review. I'll name the organization, the ID number, and the amount requested. And then I'll turn over the mic to our primary reviewer. The primary will lead the discussion by offering a brief overview of the proposal, acknowledging the strengths and weaknesses as they apply to the different sections of the application. We'll offer comments on whether the budget and supplemental materials are in order, and then also offer your overall assessment of the project in terms of feasibility and ability to complete it as proposed. And then the secondary reviewer will add any additional information and their opinion, and the discussion will open up to everyone. Not everyone is required to speak. So if you feel like everyone who's spoken has covered it, no need to chime in. But if you're not a primary and secondary and feel like you have something you want to contribute, feel free as well. And then at the very end of the meeting, depending on time, we always have a discussion about the process just to hear how it was for you as a reviewer, if there's any common things that came up in applications that you want to discuss, or if you want to just talk about the arts in Dane County, we'll have a little bit of time to debrief on the process. And I will ask everyone to complete your reviews and web grants before we sign off. So at the end of each discussion, you'll have a few minutes to go into web grants and click that submit button, and everything will be done at the end of the meeting. My role as a chair is to keep an eye on the process. I am not a discussant, so I am not able to offer my opinion on the application, but I can help answer any technical questions. And I'll be listening for your insights and recommendations, and I'll share those with the commission as appropriate. Finally, we do have some observers. They will be silently observing the meeting, kind of come and go throughout the afternoon. And since we're meeting virtually, this meeting will be recorded and available to applicants upon request. So that's all in the process. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Okay, great. So I'll start with our first application. The ID number is 26439 in the category of music, and the organization is LunART, Inc. They are requesting $5,250, which is about 26% of their total project budget. So I'll turn it over to Megan to start off the discussion.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I am sorry I have my cat Ozzy, who is just refusing to not be part of this conversation. He's a very big fan of public meetings. So to get started on this, LunArts is an existing organization that's been around for quite a while, I think since 2019 or 2018, but they are starting a new initiative really focused on women and tenor women singing in a choir, which they've identified as a very underrepresented group of people in the, even though Madison has a pretty active choir scene. So this is something new and a new initiative for them that they've been growing. They do have a variety of partners within this program planning that they already have existing partnerships with, and a few that they're building and adding some additional partnerships. They have a variety of ticket accessibility vouchers and other ways to allow a wider variety of people to engage in the program and in the concerts when they get to their performances. So that is something that was good to see. When it looks at the community served, it is a relatively small amount of estimated attendance, with only, they're estimating about 300 people and 30 participants, but it is the first year and is something that they vision growing over time. So while they're starting small, it seems that they're starting in a reasonable way that they can get a handle on what they're doing before they continue to grow. They do have some growth plans. Generally speaking, it looks like they're most of their demographic is 31 to 60-year-olds, so kind of middle-aged and not so much younger, but they do have a variety of students and other groups that they're trying to get a hold of and get connected with over time. And I know that they do have some association with the university and others around. And let's see, what else did I want to touch on? I really thought this was a good grant. I appreciated what they were doing and their attention to how they were going to look at their outcomes, and they have a good plan for tracking that. And they have a history of tracking it well to begin with, as they've grown through their programming. When I was looking at the budget, I did appreciate that there was a good amount of the budget that was heading towards honorariums and paying the people doing the work, because I think that's really important when it comes to how this money is being spent. It is going directly, in many cases, to the participants and the people that are leading things, which often is hard to come by. They had a good mix of in-kind and only a few confirmed, but this is a hard time. They submitted the grant a long time ago, so when we're looking at pending, some of these could be actually confirmed at this point. It just wouldn't show up on there. So that was just a question I had, just out of curiosity, how many of these have gone from pending to confirmed. But for example, ticket sales, you can't confirm that until after the fact. So it's a little hard to do that. And they're still trying to figure out their venue, but they've performed in a variety of different venues for their programs. So that seems like something that they would be able to do. And lastly, like I said, I think it was a very good grant, and I think that they have a good plan. They already have dates scheduled, and I have no concern with them implementing this program and being successful at it. And I think with 23% ask for this grant, it does make sense for a first year. They haven't had a chance to build those reserves or build some of that revenue stream that might offset a cost in the future. So for something that's a brand new program, it doesn't surprise me that it would be a little bit higher of an ask. So that's what I got.
Thanks, Megan. That was great. And Christina, did you want to add anything?
I thought that was a really great assessment. Just want to add, pointing out that it's women identifying and non-binary singers involved, so it's a very inclusive group, and they'll be performing, to groups that may not have exposure to many different types of people or diversity. So I think it's a really important initiative that they're undergoing. So I thought that was really strong, and building up the community for this this particular type of music too. And I thought the supplemental materials showing examples of what the singing is and like just the production value. I think that's like a recurring theme I'm finding for all of these is the examples really help us to get a sense for what this would be like. And they also hired a new artistic director to lead this group. So I thought that was showed that they're taking this seriously and that there will be scheduled programming or some artistic direction behind it. So it's not just like they're winging it. That it sounds like they have a plan.
Great. Anybody else want to add anything?
I thought this application had some of the best documentation in terms of the supplemental materials. Just wanted to follow up on that. That it really did not leave many questions for me about what this new iteration or extension of LunART could look like as its own initiative.
Yeah, the only thing for me was the limited impact on the community at large. With an, like you were saying again, with the audience projected at 300, and I know it's a new program, so it will continue to build. I'm assuming if they keep it going. You know, it's hard not to look at other applications and see there's just a larger impact on the greater Dane Arts community or Dane County community. So that was maybe something that I clocked, and also as far as the budget, $2,000 to the artistic director. I agree, it's a new position, so they do need to fund it. I just wonder if the money is better allocated elsewhere in its budget.
Thanks, everybody. All right, let's take a few minutes to score. So this is where you'll have web grants open, adjust your scores and comments, and then click the green submit button. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to submit? You click yes, and then I can see when they're all submitted, so I'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right, thanks everybody. Great job. First time they're all in. We'll move on to the next application. ID number is 26464. Category is music. The organization is Middleton Community Orchestra. And they're requesting $5,250, which is just a little over 16% of their total project budget. And we'll have Claire start the discussion.
I'm gonna try and turn my camera on, so please interrupt me if I start coming in and out. So Middleton Community Orchestra is seeking funding for 2 concerts in March and May of 2026, featuring works by Brahms, Rachmaninov, Beethoven, Ravel, and Mahler. They're asking for $5,250, which is the maximum amount that we offer, I believe. They anticipate 100 participants in the project and 500 total audience members across the two concerts. They are hosting one of the concerts in the Middleton Performing Arts Center, and they've expanded in recent years to perform at the Hamel Center. They have a very progressive ticketing policy, which I really love to see. They allow all students, including college students, into their concerts for free. General admission tickets are $20, and they estimated that 40% of their attendees do so free of charge, which I think is a really great move to make this an accessible program. This is their 16th anniversary, and you can tell that they're a well-oiled machine at this point. Their marketing routine is very well established. They have a dedicated publicist. Their donor list was incredibly varied and is 100% confirmed except for the ticket sales, which I thought was very impressive. And they're monitoring the impact and reach of their concerts with detailed metrics and reporting. I noticed some small budget and budget narrative discrepancies. They estimate their audience members at 500 total, but they account for 550 ticket sales in their budget and budget narrative. They also mentioned that the Hamel Center holds 650 patrons, and their concerts there have consistently sold out. So I would expect their crowd estimates to be closer to 800 or 900 between the two concerts. And yeah, just being consistent with that estimated number would strengthen their application. Also, they list their publicist as a volunteer in their in-kind donation section, but they've budgeted $600 for this service. So are they a volunteer or is it discounted time? I think some clarity around that would help. And similarly, the budget narrative lists the rehearsal space at $42 a week as an in-kind contribution, but it is also included in the budget. Besides that, their letters of support include 3 current MCO members of various tenures. One of the letters mentioned that their families never miss viewing the posted YouTube videos, which I thought was heartwarming. It might be nice to have more variation in these letters from general audience members or perhaps from a donor. This can give a more well-rounded picture of the impact of the Middleton Community Orchestra on its community. This is also a small thing, but PDFs are much easier to download when reviewing an application than docx files for those of us who don't have Word subscriptions. And finally, I appreciate seeing new faces in their featured artists and conductors. Some of the featured artists are familiar from having gone into previous concerts and seen previous applications of theirs, but they are still holding space for new voices and talents on their stage. And they also noted that there's about 20% turnover in the ranks of their orchestra each year, which allows opportunities for artists who are looking to join an orchestra to join their organization. So overall, I thought this was a very strong application.
Thanks, Claire. And Ben, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I thought this was also a strong application. One of the things that I noted as like feedback for the applicant is a little bit more context as to the bowing for sheet music parts. This is coming from someone who has performed in orchestras previously. Just to add a little bit more context as to like the financial implications for some of these things. I also wanted to, I guess, point out just how accessible this is as an opportunity for musicians within the Dane County area to have a high caliber or to have a professional performance experience if they are not necessarily professional musicians themselves. They have the opportunity to work with pretty high quality conductors and to have that experience in space. So I thought that was a really great way of building out access, not just in who will show up to listen to the events, but also who will get to participate as a musician in general. Especially for those people who have jobs that they're not able to sink a lot of time into their musical careers. So I thought that was great for continuing education or just continuing enrichment. and participation. Yeah, I also agree with the numbers on the patrons and the budget maybe not being the most aligned. I also mentioned the in-kind with the Boeing parts as being another area that kind of made me a little confused. But it seems like there's a lot of existing support for this, and it is like an ongoing process as well. So it sounds like there's been a lot of these questions figured out of how to keep this sustaining.
Thanks, Ben. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I did just want to also touch on that. I know both of you said it, but I also agreed. I got really kind of caught up and confused about estimated attendance and some examples they gave in the past, and also their forecasting. You know, I was trying to do a lot of math, and I'm like, these numbers aren't adding up. So it was just I think for me, it kind of tripped me up a little bit in the application because I was hoping to get it answered in the narrative, and it just kind of added a little bit more confusion for me. I do think that it's an organization that has high success and would continue to have a successful event. It just felt like it was not as clearly laid out, especially when it came to the budgeting and estimated attendance for us to really be able to do that. They said 500, and I was like, is it 500 per event or 500 total? Because that's a big difference if it's 1,000 versus 500. And then the 650 also threw me off a little bit. And I knew of the Hamel Center, but I forgot that was the name of it. So I had to Google it and look it up. And then when I did, I was like, oh, wow, that would be a really beautiful and amazing space. It's got a lot of connection with a lot of people, especially new to Dane County, with students and that sort of thing. So, you know, so that I was a little challenged on that when I was reading it because it made me question things as I went through. So.
Thanks, Megan. Anything else? All right, let's move on to scoring. Okay, thanks, everybody. Scores have been received. So we're ready to move on to the next application. The ID number is 26467. The category is Arts and Education. The organization is Madison Contemporary Dance, and they are requesting $5,100, which is nearly, was 23.5% of their total project budget. And we'll have Aaron start the discussion.
Great. Because I'm new to a lot of these, well, certainly new to this process, I don't know a lot of these nonprofits. So and I specifically didn't want to do any deep dive research into the organizations because I just wanted to see what they submitted and kind of get and adjudicate that and talk about that. So for context, the Madison Contemporary Dance Company's mission is to present original and diverse contemporary-based choreography in order to inspire audiences of all ages and backgrounds to appreciate a deeper connection to dance as a visual art form, while also providing a platform for dancers and other artists to come together for resources, education, events, support, and community. I was kind of knocked out by this. Again, don't know this organization, was really impressed with the project idea, which is Madison contemporary dance artists will teach children weekly dance classes and support them to create choreography and perform for their families and the community. The only kind of question I had was, are these dance classes or is this a performance? And it ends up being both, and I love the fact that those performances are free or mostly free with a code, depending on where the actual performance happens. I love the students that they're involving. There's 75 participants. They guesstimate about 800 people in the community will be able to see these performances. It really is a diverse group of children that might not have access to dance. They do a great job of kind of pointing out the cost of dance classes for students in Madison. I love that they included that. Just kind of really puts a fine point on the fact that it can cost, $652 per child to go to a dance studio in Dane County for 29 weeks of classes. And this organization is offering free classes to these children, and that they don't, so it eliminates, it covers dance wear, shoes, costumes, and performance expenses, which again, as a former dancer, I know those costs really, really, really add up. So to have those covered by this program is kind of an unbelievable opportunity for kids that might not otherwise have this opportunity. They're asking for $4,600. Most of it goes to staff, which I think is fine, especially with all the different teachers that are required to give up to teach. They should be paid. There seems to be quite a few pending donations. Again, this was probably submitted a while ago, so there's $13,300 worth of pending donations. Hopefully they can get those donations locked in. I thought this is a very fundable submission, helps young students from underrepresented communities, and offers a great accessibility to a variety of dance disciplines. Let's see, what else have I got on this? I just thought they were, just the number of students and the demographic of students was really fantastic in terms of the community, the Dane County community that it's serving. So those are my thoughts.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. And then Megan, did you want to follow up with any other thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that their supplemental materials really were really good in this application. It changed a little bit of my perspective from when I was reading, and then when I watched some of the videos, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing, and it really did help. So that was great, and it adapted some of my scores as I went back through and checked things out today. I do think that their evaluation process, though, is a little lacking. It was mostly focused on surveys and teachers' feedback, which I believe the teachers will have amazing feedback and will probably be the best source of evaluating it. But from a community perspective, surveys are challenging to get reasonable results if people want to fill them out and take the time to do it. So you do get good measures and some good metrics, but that was something that I was hoping to see a little bit more variety in how they might evaluate their programming. But when I started watching the video after that, I was like, I can see how they're so in it for so long. You get a really good perspective of how it is, and you build more relationships. With those relationships, you get a lot of informal feedback, I'm sure, along the way. And you get a lot of feedback from the kids, right? And you'll hear that, and they'll tell you how it is. And you'll be able to adapt and change with that. So that was just something that I noticed, and I was happy to see that. Although their surveys, they're looking at doing them in Spanish and in English, so that was good. It was in more than one language. That shows that they probably know their demographics and that there are some Spanish-speaking families or community members that they're working with, that they're wanting to help support that. Their marketing plan was solid. They have a lot of outreach. So those were just some additional things that I just wanted to kind of touch on with that one.
Thanks, Megan. Anybody else?
I think I had a question about the honorariums for the funding to support the teachers, because I was trying to break down the amount for 29 weeks of instruction at $40 a week. And my impression is that that felt, if I'm looking at that number from face value, it seems pretty low for dance instruction rates, especially looking at some of the other applications we were looking at. Especially as someone who's done youth instruction, I was wondering about that as like a factor in this. And I know that a lot of this is in the aims of increasing accessibility, but I was also curious for the sake of sustaining Dane County artists, how these rates are going to support them.
I wanted to underscore their budgeting around like adding leotards and like other dance materials. I thought that was really strong. And I also appreciated the like funding sources that they've looked for are education focused and kind of like different ones than you see in a lot of the other applications. So I thought that was clear that they've done their research. And I'd like to reiterate that the supplemental video also to me like really changed my experience of the application, and I thought it helped a lot.
I would also mention just that it's because they do a lot of other things, not just this program, that the $40 a week might seem low, but it could be also the instructor, and we don't know because it's not maybe listed in the application, that the instructors might be giving time as well as and talent to this program, and be fine with not accepting a large hourly wage to help make this program happen. So I think Ben's point is really well taken. Also, it's not really, that information isn't available in this application to know, like, are those instructors on board? I mean, if I was teaching in a dance studio where this program was kind of laid out, I absolutely would donate my time to make this program happen. But again, it's not listed, so we don't know for sure. Something to think about.
Yeah, adding that to the in-kind donations, that the instruction is subsidized by the instructors themselves would help.
Right, yeah, really thoughtful discussion. Anything else? Okay, feel free to go ahead and score. Great, thanks, everybody. Got your scores. We're ready to move on to the next application. The ID number is 26479. The category is music, and the organization is Dimensions in Sound and the Studio Orchestra. They are requesting $2,250, which is about 10.6% of their total project budget. And I'll turn it over to Christina to start the discussion.
Thank you. So Dimensions in Sound and the Studio Orchestra was founded in 1977. This particular initiative is for a concert series at Dane County Senior Retirement and Assisted Living Facilities. And they would be bringing big band, orchestral, pop, rock, and folk music to senior centers and assisted living. They're estimating to reach 1,500 audience size, and 75% of those would be seniors. And there are about 58 participants that they're expecting to be included in this. And the benefit of this program is, I think, twofold, where they're performing for seniors, so it's giving them access to these performances and this music in their lives where they aren't able to sometimes leave their community centers or leave the building, and so they're bringing music to these places, which is great. And then it's also creating an opportunity for volunteers to continue their music playing into adulthood. So it's also helping and giving the space for musicians to continue practicing and performing to a live audience. For this one, they did purchase a new drum set, and they're expanding their small group rehearsals and performances. So that's what some of this funding would be going towards. And like we've been saying, the supplemental material, like the example of the performance, did change my perspective of what this would be like. It is high production level, and it shows something that seniors would really enjoy. It's not just, kind of like a basic performance. It is actually very good. So I think they'd find a lot of entertainment in that. So overall, I thought this was a really strong initiative. A suggestion would be to maybe talk about the benefits of music education or just like musical arts and the aging process, and maybe I'm sure that they know that sort of thing. So maybe just sharing a little bit about the benefits of that, or stimulation for aging, for the aging community, would be helpful to know. Again, like PDFs are easier to open than Word docs in this review process, so that would help a lot. And then another suggestion to the letter of recommendation was an email chain. And I think it would be more effective if it was in some sort of letterhead or letter format, so that we weren't like searching for the message with all of the like forwarding and Gmail interface. So that would be my 2 cents too, is to make it a little more formalized. And I think that's it.
Great. Thanks so much, Christina. And Claire, did you want to add your thoughts?
I also, the email chain letter recommendation stuck out to me because it did include some good descriptions about the performances that I would have liked to maybe see in the application. They talked about the fact that the pieces are introduced with the history over time of each musical selection, which I think, adds a lot of depth to what is already a pretty good performance. So yeah, I think some more clarity in the application itself would help. I'd also be curious to see some budgeting or profit and loss documents for the organization for previous years, instead of, there were just like some screenshots of receipts, which definitely painted a picture of like some of the costs that they're incurring, but it would have been nicer to see a higher level understanding of that, which included, the new drum set as a line item. I got really hung up on the budget section of this. I did a lot of calculations around the mileage, where, yeah, I guess maybe the rehearsal space is far away, but at 70 cents per mile, which is kind of the average, that's 7,000 miles driven. Which if you divide by 100 for 30 shows and 50 rehearsals and some overlap between the 3 directors, is still 70 miles. So I wish I could understand some more context around that mileage calculation. And yeah, I think it does seem like the musicians are doing it, donating their time and they're paying fees to do it. And I wonder if it would be possible to compensate them for their time a little more. But overall, it does seem like the goal of this organization to provide this high quality performance to seniors is a very good goal. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Claire. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have one note. Just looking at the budget and just how many of the income items were pending. It seemed like the donations was a huge, let me see here if I'm looking at the correct thing. Am I looking at the donations? 1 second. Yeah, I think I also had some questions about the director's mileage and salaries versus supporting some of the volunteers. I understand that it's really important to have the leadership like be able to do the work they're doing, but that was also another question for me. One other question I had was the $12,000 donation line item felt like a pretty big number compared to all the other income sources. And so for me, one thing I was wondering was like, what has been the past precedent for donations? And wondering if this is like a common amount that's frequently received. That's one thing that I was curious about.
I had a couple comments. I appreciated that this was really, they knew their audience and they knew who they were playing to. I thought that was really great, and that they knew that they would be the opportunity to meet the seniors where they were at versus creating a show for them to come to was really important, that they knew their audience and challenges that they might have. I did also appreciate that they do other things like the honor flight and some other ways to do things that are really focused on those seniors and where they're participating in activities. And you know, they didn't shy away from that and say, well, I try to cover it for everyone. They're like, no, we are really focused on seniors and those that might be with them. And it is a good opportunity at people's, you know, senior living facilities for families to join them. So you do see some of those demographics related to that. So I thought that was, I wanted to just kind of call that out in this. There was one other thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it is. So I'm going to pause there for just a moment.
Yeah, I agree about the audience and going to where the need is rather than having people come to your performance somewhere to enjoy, you know, your music or your art, that they are going out of their way to make it accessible and to a large demographic in compared to a lot of submissions in Dane County. So I just thought this was really pointed and a very good submission. But no taken about the travel.
Remembered what I wanted to say, the other piece. I did appreciate how they have larger bands and smaller bands, and they have 58 people, give or take, that based on everyone's availability, they're able to put together a large band or a smaller group and can adapt based on the facility or the places that they're going to. There's some places that wouldn't accommodate a 20-piece big brass band, and so they can find something else. And they had a variety of music that I think is in line with the musical tastes of some of the older demographic, that they might have some nostalgia. And I think Christina, you mentioned about or one of you mentioned about the memory care and like that association with it, you know, that is being nimble. And I appreciated that about the grant. And that it was really focused on that, and they could adapt based on availability and need of the organization that they were going to.
Yeah, really great discussion, everyone. Anything else you want to add? All right, you can go ahead and submit your scores. All right, thank you. Got all the scores in. We're ready to move on to the next application, which is ID number 26489. The category is Multidisciplinary Arts and Culture. The organization is TNW Ensemble Theater, Inc., and they are requesting $2,950, which is 13.4% of their total project budget. And Ben, would you start us off with the discussion?
Yes. So the TNW Ensemble Theater is based in Madison, established in 1985. They create, produce, perform, and present original works of art and cultural practice, collaborating with artists and scholars, working across theater, social justice, visual arts, tap dance, and music. Their goal and vision is to bring arts and culture to audiences of all ages and backgrounds, encourage participation while promoting the understanding of diverse cultures and enriching the lives of individuals and communities. So that, yes, as Augusta mentioned, they are requesting $2,950 to help produce their rhythm project, which includes a workshop at their location in Winnebago Street in Madison, as well as a performance at Promenade Hall at the Overture Center. And both of these will take place in pretty close succession with each other, with the first workshop happening November 2nd, and the performances happening roughly a week later, November 7th through 9th. So with this, their audience size and also number of projects and presenters is on the relatively smaller side compared to some of the other projects we were looking at. The age breakdown is mostly tailored towards adults. And the project is the outreach is meant to support all the areas in Dane County, although there is a focus within Madison. One thing that I wanted to note about this application that I thought was interesting was the multidisciplinary aspect of this. I thought that that was pretty strong in terms of trying to include tap dance as a central element, but also bringing in music, they also include body rhythms as well as including poetry and arts. So I thought this was a interesting way to expand participation and also who is included in this project. It sounds like the focus or goal of this project is to raise the profile of percussive dance movement music in Dane County. I thought it was smart to not only provide a performance venue, but also to include a workshop aspect for those who want to gain hands-on knowledge about this. Also, going through and committing to having more interdisciplinary possibilities by emphasizing the workshop area, which is also free. The event is ticketed at $30 for the performance at the Overture, although free discounted tickets are available based on a donor support, which is reflected in the budget area. I'm currently looking through some of the other points. One thing that I personally thought about the budget was that it was very detailed. I appreciated that a lot of the funds were outlined in order to support both participants and also to outline the needs of both the workshop and also the performance area. They're estimating 300 tickets sold at $30, which will add up to $9,000 for the performance event. They have confirmed funding of about $8,000, and they also have confirmed funding through the Madison Arts Commission, Madison Arts Board. They also have some balance of in-kind time, so it sounds like the recording time for the poet is included, as well as some artwork that will be featured. I think that this is a very interesting project. There was a small segment that included a performance. I wish there were maybe more images utilized within the attachment space just to get a sense of the overall performance and experience, since it is going to be so broadly focused on both a workshop and dance. In this case, we're only really getting to see a little bit of dance, or sorry, a little bit of tap dance as well as sound. So that is one thing that I would be interested in seeing a little bit more about. I'm also going to look at the outcomes. I think the outcomes could be useful to better understand the explicit goals of these collaborations. I think it's very interesting that that the goal of the TNW is to focus on original works, so not just rehearsing pre-prepared things, but focusing on creating new works of dance and art in the area. So yeah, I think there are maybe some questions that I have about the attachments, some questions that I have about the audience size and the impact. Um, I think the outreach is covering a lot of the general bases for this. But yeah, I also want to open this up and hear other people's thoughts on this.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, Aaron, you want to follow up?
Excuse me, sure. Yeah, Ben did a great job of kind of framing the whole project. You know, he mentioned the size of community impact, and I agree. It's relatively small in comparison to some of the other submissions. I know we should probably just look at each individual one on its merits, but it just seems like this is a not a project that doesn't necessarily help the Dane County community at large. Very specific. I find it curious that they're going to spend almost $8,000 just to perform once at the Overture Center, but their tickets, and that means it's selling out at $300 or 300 audience members would just barely cover just the cost of the rental space at the Overture Center. That doesn't include $3,500 in advertising and $1,600 on video documentation and posters and such. So I just wonder where the community benefit is. Having a show at the Overture Center obviously brings a lot of awareness. Even if people don't see it, they see the poster, they see, you know, the Overture Center is such an artistic hub for performing arts. I just don't know if in compared to some of the other applications, that this is one that merits funding.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, other thoughts?
I was very curious about the workshops. You know, they're mentioned as an important part of this this project, but we don't see like much information on previous workshop attendance or any supplemental materials around the workshop. So yeah, I would like to know more about how many people attend, like what their experience is, maybe a letter of support from a workshop attendee. They could also offer discounted tickets for those who came to the workshop. I think that might be a nice way to like encourage people to experience the art that they're going to go see. Yeah, it left me with a lot of questions about this workshop.
I just wanted to add that I struggled with the attachments in this. They didn't seem to provide me with that. Oh yeah, I see what you're going for. Like I had felt with some of the other supplemental materials that were added, there was a lot of budgetary stuff. So they're looking at their numbers, they're paying attention to, you know, those types of things. And there was a video, but there was just, I wanted to see a little bit more attachments to give a little bit more depth and breadth to that, whether it was from past experience to give examples of what they were capable of, or previews to what they might have planned. It is new work, so it's really hard to be able to like show you what you've done in the past. And I think with some attendance with new work, there's not the name recognition that goes along with it, that with other shows that people will know the name, they know what they're getting into. So I think there's a little more, it's a little more challenging because they can't say what past experiences if this is the first time that they're doing this project, with it being new work. So there's not like that name recognition piece. So, but I was hoping to see a little bit more in the attachments for this project.
Thanks, Megan. Anything else? All right, feel free to go ahead and score. Thanks, everybody. I've got your scores. And we'll move on to the last application before our scheduled break. This application is ID number 26492. The category is dance, and the organization is Central Midwest Ballet. They are requesting $4,000, which is 13.5% of their total project budget. And Megan, would you start the discussion?
Yeah, thank you. So they currently have 3 performances scheduled over the winter, leading into the holiday season, and it will be performed at the Oregon Performing Arts Center, which is just outside of Madison here, which was nice to see that it is a grant that wasn't Madison-centric. Even though I'm from Madison, I appreciate seeing, since we're looking at county performances, that there's organizations throughout the county that are applying. They do have a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters in One City schools when it comes to ticketing and ensuring that there's opportunities for those students to see the show. They also are providing free tickets to choreographers, rehearsal instructors, and any students that are on financial aid that are participating with them. So I think they have a very holistic goal of having accessible tickets and accessible programming. Their tickets are also $20, which is a reasonable, I think, price for a ticket. They are a family-friendly storybook ballet, and they're doing the Little Matchstick, and and it's going to be on stage, like I said, around the Christmas time. And it's a tale of love, loss, and the Christmas miracles is the theme of that play, or that show, I should say. As expected, their demographic is youth and adults, which I'm assuming parents mostly, of those participating, but as well as the community at large. This show seems to be a show that they do regularly in their season around the holidays, but they do have some other events where they participate with the Edgewater, Old Brick Gardens, Wanakee Village Center, Garver Feed Mill, and some others. So they take it outside of Oregon and move it around. There was some really positive feedback from the Edgewater, specifically, and some great imagery from Garver showing how it's open and accessible to the public. I do like that they bring the dancers to the tree lightings, and it's in line with what they're doing. It adds an element to those events that are very open to the public and hopefully would increase their ticket sales, people understanding of their organization. It's a very nice organic way to make those connections and collaborations. So I did like that. This is their 10th anniversary, so it's not a first time doing this show. They also have quite a number of participants, which I liked, that are participating from the volunteers, dancers, and choreographers. I appreciated that, and that 90% of they understand 90% of their students won't be going to be professional dancers, but it gives them an opportunity and the benefit of performing, which holds value regardless of whether you call yourself a professional or not. Many people undersell themselves as professional artists and musicians and dancers. And so I think that's important that they're identifying that, but also saying that the value is still strong within performing and having opportunity to do that on whatever level you're doing it. They also said they're going to comp 50 tickets to various organizations and local arts groups, which is great because I think they understand their market and understand that ticket affordability is important. They have a very strong marketing outreach package, as well as I felt like their intended outcomes were pretty clearly laid out. And one thing I did want to note related to their what's new about the project, I really thought it was great that they increased their cast by 50 dancers and 6 new dances were choreographed with 100+ new costumes sewn since the last time they applied. That's pretty significant growth within a program. And so I thought that was really good to call out that they are growing within that. I think their narrative was pretty strong. I didn't call out anything specifically within there that was that I wanted to call out at this point. They don't have a lot of grants, I suppose, or other public funding, but they have a lot of in-kind donations that are confirmed that are pretty significant. Like the costumes are fully confirmed as comped. And that's an in-kind donation of $10,000, which is pretty significant. So it seems like their community is stepping up and they have some concessions and merch and things that they're selling that they don't have an extensive grant or other funding sources because they've found ways to do that within their community, which shows the strong community connection and backing within their project. Their photos and imagery, I think, were really beautiful. They have a great photographer that's helping them, at least in their production photos. They're very well done. So it just, again, I think shows that they have a good connection and collaboration, and they had some good letters of recommendation and support from a variety of sources.
Thanks, Megan. And Claire, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I thought the budget narrative explaining the choreography cost was very helpful. That initial number was pretty eye-watering, but their explanation of the need to re-choreograph every year because of their growth and changing with the company makes sense. And also, I had one note: if 20% of the organizer's salaries go towards choreography, then that should be included in the donations section as private donations to, or as in-kind donations to account against that $15,000 credit or debit. I'd also like to see a little more diversity in funding, perhaps some corporate support or individual donations. This is something where they could have programs with corporations buying ad spaces in the programs. I think they're pretty well set up for something like that. And I would reiterate that I thought the letters of support and the supplemental photos were very strong.
Thanks, Claire. Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on some of Claire's thoughts about the program support, that there is a lot of community support. But I was surprised to see how low the sponsorship tier was, especially considering that this has been a production that's happened for many years, that it would be nice to maybe see more buy-in from either the host venues or just more businesses, considering that this is around the holidays and they are drawing in a pretty large crowd for this event.
Thanks, Ben. Anything else? All right. Feel free to go ahead and score. All right, great. First half done. Awesome discussions. I really appreciate all the thoughtfulness and how thorough you each are. We are hitting time for a break. Do you want to take a 10-minute break or a 5-minute break? I mean, I don't know how you are on time. We're just a little ahead of schedule, which is fine, like 4 minutes. So we could make up the 5 minutes by taking a shorter break, or if you want the 10 minutes, we can do that as well. Any
I'm fine with
preference?
5.
5.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay, and then let's take 5 minutes before we break. I wanted to ask Claire, how are you doing on time? Do you have a hard stop right before 4?
Yes, unfortunately. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, is it okay with everyone if we discuss the applications where Claire is primary or secondary right after the break? So that would mean when we come back, we would discuss the Chrysalis Inc. application. So it'd be Claire and Aaron, and then after that, we could discuss Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters. That would be Megan and Claire. Is that okay to rearrange the order?
Yeah, fine by me.
Okay. All right, great.
Thanks,
Let's
everyone.
let's do that. And then meet back at like 3:21. Thank you. Yeah, that break went by quick. Everybody good? Okay. So we'll just skip a couple applications and proceed with application 26528 in the category of multidisciplinary arts and culture. The organization is Chrysalis, Inc., and they're requesting $3,000. That's just over 13% of their total project budget. And we'll start with you, Claire, as a primary.
Yes. Chrysalis is seeking funding for a storytelling workshop and performance that will be held at Garver Feed Mill or another Atwood location on March 3rd. They're asking for $3,000 to help cover the expenses of workshop instructors, storyteller stipends, promotional costs, and an MC. This is their third year running this event, which was held last year at Garver Feed Mill. Tickets to this event are priced at $20 suggested donation, allowing patrons to pay what they are able. This event is also live streamed to extend their reach. This workshop is led by 2 professional storytellers who will lead a 3-part workshop for 12 to 18 participants to develop their storytelling skills. From this group, 9 storytellers are chosen to share at the event, and those storytellers receive a $100 stipend. The budget document showing their progress over the last 3 years painted a good picture of their organization. I thought it's clear that they're trying things out and adding or removing features each year based on their steadily increasing budget and the success of that feature. I also thought their development plan was very interesting. It shows that there's been a lot of thought and effort that has gone into their project. I think their application could be strengthened by giving more details and metrics in the application and less flowery language about the project. It kind of felt like they were repeating the same information for all of the questions, and you kind of had to dig to get solid information about the core of the project. I think this is a very impactful program that has demonstrated engagement from the community, but that impact is buried in their supplemental materials. For example, the sponsorship packet included a lot of information about the event, including the actual date and location of the event, which I struggled to find in the actual application. The reach of their live stream was similarly not communicated in the application itself, but in the supplemental materials, they mentioned that it reaches over 500 people, which is a great reach, I think. Additionally, their budget document doesn't include the $15,000 staff salaries that they have listed in the Dane Arts application, which was confusing when I was trying to reconcile the 2 documents. So yeah, I would just encourage them in future applications to give some more concrete details in the application itself. I thought the letters of support were particularly strong in this application. One was from the Director of Community Services at Journey Mental Health Center, who underscored the relationship between their 2 organizations and the impact of storytelling as part of the healing process. And the other was from a parent of a participant who said that the program was a very meaningful experience for their child. So I thought they were very strong support letters and really communicated the impact of this program.
Thanks, Claire. And yeah, Aaron, did you want to add anything?
I think Claire did a great job summing up my points. It does serve a small group of they estimated 250, but it's free to the public. And so, we have been talking, or I should say, I have been talking a lot about like focusing on the community impact in Dane County. And although this is a small group that it would maybe necessarily, as far as an audience, it is a very unique project focused on a very specific audience that maybe kind of has even more impact on those participants than perhaps a dance concert or a music concert. I think it's soul affirming, and I think the impact is great. I thought their supplemental materials were really, really helpful. Full disclosure of their budget and where their money goes, how they support the community that they serve. I gave this a really high score. I thought it was really creative and interesting. At first glance, again, it was like Claire was saying, you got to do a little digging throughout to kind of really fundamentally understand what this is. But if you take the time to kind of dig, you're like, oh, this is really good. I mean, if there's any suggestion, I would say maybe better clarity in applications, because the work is really good that they're doing. It's like doing a better job of selling that or describing that. But I thought it was really quite great.
Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else in the group want to chime in?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ben, you want to go first?
Oh, you can go first.
I thought this was a very strong project as well. I thought that there was the sharing the stories and helping people put words to what they've experienced and assisting them through that process through the workshops is valuable, even if they're not in the performance. So I really liked the workshop piece, and that it really helped give voice to something that these individuals have been dealing with. And, you know, Claire, when you said their child, they're working with adults. So this is an adult, you know, and the parents still having a voice in the benefit that it's had for their adult child, I think is really important. That it's usually you only hear those voices from when your children are little or school aged. And so I think it's important to show that there's a larger community that this will impact, even if the numbers aren't that big. The ripple effect of that impact and people's ability to learn how to voice their experience and share that with their community is really valuable. And that live stream, it would be nice to see more metrics on it. And it's not just a one and done, because I'm sure they record it and there's opportunity to continue to share that and have that ripple effect of those stories and of those voices. Chrysalis is an organization, I think they've really, over the many years of this organization, my whole life, I think I've known of Chrysalis. It's been amazing to see the things that they've adapted from sheltered workshops to much more public facing, public engaging, and helping not just the organization itself, but really helping their participants that are within that vocational space, having an opportunity to share their stories, which are hugely impactful, and especially in this moment in time, being able to voice it in a way that is clear, concise, and really gets your message across, and having help learning how to do that and putting that into practice, I think has a lot of value. They have a great budget variety of some atypical arts funding. The neighborhood association is involved in funding. They have some pending from True Stage, I think either UW Health, when you look at the whole holistic health side of mental health, and then using art as a way to express it. So I too gave this a very high score. I thought it was really great, and I was really happy to see that this is a new and innovative way to continue to grow and express those stories.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up. It's really nice to have a program that focuses on storytelling, especially on trying to reach a new audience. So maybe bringing in people in the door who maybe don't have a lot of experience with storytelling. My one note, looking at the budget, and I think it helps to understand the organization in better context, is a lot of the application is emphasizing the importance of storytelling. And I was surprised to see how potentially how low the honorarium or teaching um, was for the amount for the two storytelling experts of, I believe, $500 each. I think I would like to see that maybe reflected in the budget a little bit better by increasing the amount of honorarium given to each instructor, especially considering that they have a relatively large group of 12 to 18 participants. So that was the one area where I thought this application could maybe draw more attention or emphasize or improve on that point.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh.
Anything else?
I was just going to add, I agree with the letter of support from the mom was really effective. And then the sponsorship packet too was really well done. I think it goes to show the impact of graphic design and how branding can really make a program, elevate a program. through the materials.
Yeah, again, awesome discussion. Anything else? Right, please proceed to scoring then. Great, thanks everybody. You're very efficient. We got the scores in. Okay, jumping around a little bit on the schedule. We're going to go to the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters application. So it's the last one on the agenda. It's application 26546. The category is Visual Arts. And again, this is for the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters. They are requesting $2,100, and that's 8% of the total project budget. And we'll have you start off the discussion, Megan.
All right. So this project is exhibits that will happen at the James Watrous Gallery, as well as in places around Madison. There'll be a tour of Artworkings, which one of the artists works out of Artworkings as his studio. This is a two-person show. I think they had applied as individual solo artists, but they, through the process, ended up pairing them together. I think it makes for a really rich and dynamic show from a variety of different perspectives. I thought that the pairing of these two individuals and their art and art practices were really strong. It also includes gallery talks, a reception, poetry, indigenous language workshops, which I thought were really great. The tour, like I said, of the Artworking Studio, and opportunities for college and high school students to be involved and engage in the project. So I thought that was a really great way to, put some of the things that students are learning in the classroom into real life application. There's also a fashion show that they were planning with Romano's art on his clothing, which I thought was really great, taking it off the walls onto the runway. I thought that was a really unique way to show that, and it really shows the. I liked the kind of the juxtaposition of the boarding school and the Black culture and disability rights, and how how Romano Johnson does express his work and his learning and his presentation. So I thought that was really great. Their reach of 1,800 people, I thought was pretty strong from a direct outreach. So that was good. Let's see, what else? I did like the way that they're showing new works and fostering these new opportunities and connections. I think they have a very strong outreach. It is through the James Watrous Gallery, and they have a lot of really strong outreach and individuals. And then you get the people that are just there in the Overture Center that will happenstance upon it, since it is free admission into the studio or into the gallery space. And then there are some pay as you can or pay as you wish. The budget seemed pretty spot on. I think if we talked earlier about mileage, but being outside of Dane County, that might just be a question related to one of the artists being up in Hayward or coming from Hayward and needing to rent some equipment to move some large scale pieces. But that is part of having to get it there. So it's a reasonable, and it didn't look like an unreasonable amount that they were setting aside for that. They have a lot of confirmed sources of income at this moment from a variety of sources that are not your traditional funds. So it shows that they have a robust outreach and they're paying attention to where they're applying for what based on their funding sources. The supplemental materials, I did have a struggle opening them. There were some zip files and some things that like just spun on me for a little while. So I wasn't able to really see all of the supplemental materials on an individual like photo basis. So that was a little disappointing that they weren't in a way that were easy to open, or it was just they were trying to put a lot of information in. So, which is good, but I wasn't able to fully view and get the full breadth of their supplemental materials. But overall, I thought this was a very strong ask and will be a really exciting exhibit when it opens.
Thanks so much, Megan. Yeah, Claire.
Yep, Megan covered a lot of my points, but I also wanted to mention just how impressed I was with the creativity that the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts, and Letters is putting into these showings. Not only, they're not just simply showing the work, they're working with the artists to develop the shows and the programs, and they're supporting them with mileage reimbursement, travel for the artwork itself, and supporting them in showcase development. Yeah, they're considering the fashion show and engaging classes to be taught by the artists. So I thought it was really cool to see how they're building more of a residency than simply a show, and I'm excited to see how they continue to grow.
Thanks, Claire. I'll open it up to anyone else.
This was one of my higher scores. I thought it was great across the board. Just the again, Dane County impact of estimated 1,800. Just visibility, the story it's telling through the art is phenomenal. I love that it was 8% of the budget. They're not asking for a ton, but I think it's a really worthy submission. Just is the cleanest, and I just really liked it.
Yeah, I have one small note, just considering the fact that I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the galleries within Madison. I wanted to know, I do agree with the attachments. I think the supplemental materials could maybe be presented in a little bit easier summary. I also would consider providing a brief overview of what the gallery space looks like. I know that we're a small arts community in Madison, but it doesn't hurt just to know what a potential gallery layout could look like, just to have some more visual examples. Also considering that this is maybe one of the more established gallery spaces within Madison, I would consider increasing the artist honorarium where possible, especially since there is maybe more prestige or just more importance to the artists that are in this space, since they did request a smaller amount of their total project with what they could ask Dane Arts.
Thanks, Ben and Aaron. Yeah, any other thoughts? All right, let's move on to scoring then. Great, got everybody in. All right, so I'm going to jump back to the top of the agenda right after the break. This is Madison Flute Club application. The ID is 26512. The category is music. Madison Flute Club is requesting $5,250, and that's 19% of their total project budget. Our primary reviewer is Aaron, so I'll have you kick us off.
All right. So the Wisconsin Flute Festival is an annual educational event of the Madison Flute Club, welcoming hundreds of flautists and music enthusiasts of all ages and abilities. It's comprised of interactive sessions, performances, and competitions presented by students to established artists. They have about 50 participants and an estimated audience of 350. This is an annual event. It did say that the project starts and ends on May 30th of 2026. So it's a very fast turnaround to get all the planning and accomplish the event all in one day. I thought it was, let's see, I wish it was more community impact, but they really know their audience. And it seems like a huge event every year for anybody that loves the flute or flute music. I love that the education component, I love that it is centered in Dane County, even though it draws musicians from all over the state, that it is kind of hubbed here. It only helps Dane County's portfolio of artistic dominance of the state. So I'm all for it. There's 118 pages of content to get through of the supplemental content. So that was a bit much to kind of go through and see it all. A lot of it was not necessary to get an understanding of the organization or the project. Yeah, I thought it was really well crafted. It's clear what the project is and who it serves. Yeah, I like that it's centered here in Madison, even though it doesn't necessarily serve the Dane County community. I think it's it can, but it's not necessarily centered here. Yeah, I gave it a pretty high score. There was a lot of possible funding that is pending. Again, who knows when they submitted in comparison to now and what they've been able to secure. But it's an annual event, and so it seems to be a pretty well-run machine. And so I have no doubt that they will continue to find funding. Yeah, the scope is very narrow, but I really like this submission.
Thanks, Aaron and Christina.
Yeah, so I like what you said, the scope is really narrow, but I think there's such depth to it. So that was really cool to see. And that showed through in the supplemental material, the program. I was just really surprised at how much there was about the flute and in every direction you could go. So that really sold me was that it gave it such vibrancy and personality. So agreed, this was a really strong application, and it seemed like this was one of the most innovative groups that they had so far. So seems like they're kind of expanding a little bit in the artistic direction. So and it sounds like they try to do a good job, you know, debriefing after each festival and assessing for next time. So overall, great.
Thanks, Christina. I'll open up to the rest of the group.
Yeah, there's one area that I was a little uncertain about that I think part of the project was meant to be open to the public, but I don't think that they've yet listed which areas of the festival are going to be open to the public and which are going to be open explicitly to people who buy a ticket.
I really liked the with the supplemental materials. I got a little lost in them too. It was just a lot, and I would have liked to see maybe some short clips of maybe one of the presentations or of some of the people playing or that sort of thing, where there was a little bit more engagement and maybe feel of the event. But I do think that the materials that they had were like really well thought out. The schedule was really clear. I think that part, if you were there, those materials would be really helpful and beneficial to your participation at the event. I'd be curious, you know, to learn a little bit more about the other avenues, like they had talked about vendors and those sorts of things. Like how are they, you know, working with people to like, you know, connect with growing their, you know, art, or are they getting them exposed to more music, or like what does that look like? I do really like that they have fourth wall coming. I think that's great. I think that is a great organization and or group, and will be elevate the event for this upcoming year. I think it is so focused on students, you know, and like whether they're, you know, school age children or young adults in college, or people that are sort of finding their way between learning to play music and if they're going to take it professionally, how are they going to incorporate that into their lives ongoing. And I think this is a great opportunity for them to see more opportunities to continue their music outside of the traditional classroom and what they might be exposed to now. And there was one letter from the teacher talking about the impact to her students coming into Dane County and, you know, exploring that and experiencing that. It was really positive from the teacher, which I really liked to hear about the impact on their students. So I liked those pieces of it.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, anything else? All right, looks like we got it covered, so can go ahead and submit your scores. Great, thanks everybody. We're gonna move on to the next application. The ID is 26515. The category is multidisciplinary arts and culture. The organization is Opera for the Young, and they are requesting $5,250, which is 23% of the total project budget. And Ben is our primary for this application.
Yes. So the organization Opera for the Young wants to engage and educate children about opera with professional, affordable, in their mission, they say school-based performances, but in this case, this would be just a public, open performance. They want to involve students in all aspects of creating the opera, from design to performance. They want to provide professional opportunities for artists and create new works, especially intended for young audiences, which will in turn broaden access for more communities to learn about and engage with opera. This is a previous applicant. The more I reviewed this application, the more I understood that this is basically part of an ongoing series where Opera for the Young will visit a location and put on a performance. So this is something that is like a bread and butter for the organization. In the abstract, they mentioned that they'll be presenting their 16th annual Family Opera Day on March 31st. In this application, they list March 31st, 2025. So I'm wondering if they forgot to update their application from possibly last year. featuring 2 performances of Magic Flute in the Playhouse Theater at the Overture, as well as having a workshops in design, music, and movement, which I mentioned before, with the assistance of Madison youth choirs. So there is a little bit of community outreach that's going on outside of just the organization. So one thing that is really important about this application is that it looks like they are not charging anything for people to participate, if I am looking correctly. And so this is funded through various grants. They have annual fund donors. They have partial confirmation for some of their funds. And with this, they're able to help raise 100% of costs for this project. They've got some support through looks like a corporate partner of Thompson Investment Management. I thought it was useful to see their attachments just to get a sense of how involved they are, where they're taking opera professionals and bringing them together with youth to put on a performance together. I think that's not something that you see all the time, where you have professionals and youth working together to create kind of an interactive production. One thing that I was uncertain about is how to weigh this, since this is a program that has been put on pretty repeatedly. I think from understanding more about this project, it sounds like this is something that has maybe been put on throughout other schools within Dane County. So this is definitely not the first instance of this, but it is something that has been around and produced many times.
Thanks, Ben. Megan, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so a couple additional things that kind of stood out to me is that they talked about their metrics from last year, and that they were able to draw families from 18 cities, which I think shows a great range. I'm assuming many of them are from Dane County. There's probably a few cities outside of Dane County, but probably really focused on the Dane County area. So I think, you know, Aaron, to your point, as we look at this reach across Dane County, as we've talked about other things, this really 18 cities is a large reach from within the region, and really focusing on intergenerational experience. So the kids are part, but the kids have to get there somehow. So they're engaging and their parents aren't dropping and going. And I think it adds to their school-based curriculum. So they are going into schools. Parents, depending on the schools, do show up and watch, or other grandparents, those sorts of things. But it's really focused on the youth within the classroom and within the school. And then this sort of, I think, gives them an opportunity to let those that can't make that or can't participate in that way an opportunity to engage on a more public level and show people what this is about. So when they hear their kids come home and talk about it, they've maybe they understand it a little bit more because they've gotten to experience. I do appreciate it is from like start to finish. They're not just like dumping them in at the end and be like, you know, trying to show that they're doing something. It's very engaged and very hands-on, and everyone is a performer, whether you have a professional credentials or you are a child in this. They're all part of the performance and integral to that opportunity, and they find ways to work with kids where they're at. So I think that that's really good. And I think they have good metrics to be able to measure this, if they are able to identify where people are coming from and how many people they're touching on. So I do think that this is a good addition to what they do with their bread and butter kind of day-to-day programming. This is that opportunity to kind of show it publicly to everyone who can't go into a school, doesn't have permission to go into a school, can't make it because they work, those sorts of things. It gives them an opportunity. And maybe kids that didn't get to be in the performance but wanted to and got inspired from being there, it might give them an opportunity to participate in a different way. So that's all.
Thanks, Megan. Other thoughts?
I loved the creativity of the pre-show workshops. I thought it was a great way to incorporate education and play into the performance itself. I also thought that their outreach, they had some interesting ideas. They are doing like a TV interviews on a public news channel to make sure that their reach gets people who, yeah, who may not, who that may be their like source of news. Yeah, I thought it was a really fun and creative act.
Thanks, Claire. Anything else? All right. And go ahead and score.
I've submitted my review for the final application. I'm gonna sign off now. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Claire. All right, that puts us at our last application now, actually. So this application is ID number 26532 in the category of music. The organization is Token Creek Festival, Inc. They are requesting $5,200, which is 18% of their total project budget. And we have Christina as our primary.
Yes. So the Token Creek Chamber Music is known for their Token Creek Summer Festival. It's been going on since 1989 until 2022. And this initiative is their MidWinter Festival, which is their first winter season. And they're hoping to continue the legacy of that Token Creek Summer Festival. And as they switch to year-round programming, they're expanding the different types of events and artists that they're showcasing. They're expecting 24 participants and an audience size of 300, which are mostly adults. And so the Token Creek, what makes it unique is that it's one of the few like undeveloped pieces of land. So performances happen kind of like in a more unique setting, which is really cool to hear. And it's chamber music, so it's a very intimate like salon setting. And they have new partnerships and expanded promotions for this festival. So a lot of promotional planning, like digital, social, print. I'm assuming they have already a pretty big following with the summer festival. So it seems pretty robust. And then they'll be analyzing the feedback from the performances by audience applause and attendance, but then also how their mailing list is growing. So it seems like they're thinking about quantitative and qualitative analytics. Yeah, and so I didn't know about this place before, but reading the application and then looking at the supplemental materials informed me on what chamber music is. I had no idea, and it seems like a really unique opportunity. And it's cool that they're now providing it year round. So it seems like that space will be utilized more months out of the year than just the summer. So that's everything I had for them.
All right, thanks, Christina. Ben.
Yes. So I thought this was also new for me, someone who's been in the Madison area for a while. I thought that this program was definitely it was really useful to see the all the various letters from the attendees and also some of the attachments, just to understand that especially the musicians who perform there find it to be a really enriching experience, more for the artistic expression and development. I think due to it being in a more rural area, I did have questions about how large of an audience it can reach out to. I was also curious about the potential community partners and or collaborators. There is, for example, the LunART Chamber Music Collective, but aside from that, I'm not necessarily sure how this organization is planning on, or if there are any plans to outreach with other organizations versus focusing more on just bringing people to this area. One other thing that I noted as well is that within the attachment space in the sample newsletter, there's an example of the performance. It seems like it's really important for this organization to document and record the performances as a way to potentially generate revenue through selling those recordings. And I would wish that they would maybe provide at least a small sampling or recording just to understand how exceptional this music is that's being performed here, just for future application. So I thought this was a very interesting or unique thing. It seems like artists who visit this really, they really respect this area, and it maybe brings more cultural awareness to Dane County, just in terms of bringing exceptional artists to this area. But there are questions I have about the outreach and the spread of this.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, anybody else?
Just kind of off of what you said, Ben, as I was reading through, one of the things I thought was interesting is that they were really focused on like DeForest, Wanakee, Lodi, Windsor, and Sun Prairie. Those are all the communities that are adjacent to Token Creek. And so, and then Madison, of course, because those are sort of the communities that surround Token Creek. So really looking at that side of the interstate and communities that are over there that tend to not that may not be normally directly called out as their demographic, and of people that might also have a buy-in with the land because of their proximity to it. I did think it was interesting that they, one of their loftier goals is the development towards a Center for Arts and Ecology, and building that arts and ecology together, utilizing, I think, the building that they do the concerts in as a hub for that art and ecology connection, and bringing people to understand that synergy between arts and ecology. And I'd be interested and excited to see what else they do besides just music to do that. You know, we see other events around the region that really focus on that art and ecology. So I'm interested to see kind of where they take that over time as they grow. And it looks like they are strategically trying to find new partnerships. It doesn't call out what they are or if they've accomplished that yet, but at least their goal behind it is at least called out as something that they're trying to do. So I thought that those were just two interesting pieces related to this this program.
This is one of the applications I really did not like, and I'll tell, and which is interesting. It just felt like it was 100. I think it's a good example of good programming in actuality, and then this submission felt not connected to the work that they actually do. To me, this was the first application that felt like it was 100% AI generated. In terms of like their outcome section, they just had 14 words, qualitative words that describe their outcomes. Like literally 14, like word, comma, word, comma, word, comma, word, comma. And I just thought, who wrote that? Like, what? Describe the things that you are the outcomes for this program. So that was really, and as I kind of went through, I was clocking more and more. I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem like a human wrote that. For whatever, I mean, again, maybe it was completely written by a human, but it didn't feel like it when I read it. There was a disconnect. And then there were wrong dates. They referred to their place where they do the performances as a plant. Maybe it's a plant or a factory. I'm not sure. It was weird things like that where I was like, where did that come from? It really struck me poorly that they decided to, for their expenses, their honorariums, to give $4,500 to Aspen String Trio, and then a fraction of that to LunART, who's a Dane County women-led nonprofit organization. You're giving them less money than everybody else with no explanation. Just say, and maybe it's like because it's one person, or and the other ones are 4 people, whatever. But like no explanation. It just is a bad look when you have 3 guest artists coming in and you're not paying them equally, and then the woman-centered organization's getting the least. Just it seemed like a strange look. So I was not as struck by this application.
Thanks. Any other?
What a great way to
items?
end. Sorry about that.
No, I think that was so insightful. I didn't notice until now, looking back at it. Wow. Yeah. I didn't even notice the plant. Like, wow. Good catch.
I agree, Erin, and I think that coming from you're coming from a space in which this is a huge conversation in your world, and I think that that's really great insight, and we're seeing more and more of that happen across disciplines, and how do you have an eye to discern that? And it's really difficult. So I think it's really important that you at least call into question whether or not it's the reality of it. That's I don't think any of us are running this through an AI generator just to double check if we even know how to find one. It is a question. I might be calling you, Erin, because I have something else I need to try that with. But I think it is important, and I think that's a reason why there's not just one person on this panel, so we can all have different input. So I really appreciate your perception and what you called out on this, or called in.
Thank you.
Yeah, great discussion, everyone. Anything else? Are you ready to score? All right, score the last one.